From the YouTube channel that brought you the History of Kicking Ass Part 1 and the History of Kicking Ass Part 2 comes the final chapter in the saga in which no ass is left unkicked. The History of Kicking Ass Part 3. All asses must die. So, our previous installment ended in the late 80s with a former B-movie star turned president who had Americans feeling larger than life and embracing action heroes that were the living embodiment of that steroidal sentiment. However, while audiences were amped up by the antics of Arnold and Stallone, they didn't necessarily relate to these jacked behemoths. And they might have even felt a little bad that they didn't look like those guys. Couldn't there be an on-screen stand-in for the best believable version of themselves, or at least a leading man they could imagine being buds with? You know, an action hero they could crack a beer with. Well, they got him with 1987's Lethal Weapon and 1988's Die Hard. What Mel Gibson and Bruce Willis lacked in physical stature, they made up for in two age-old leading man attributes: charisma,
yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker,
and the ability to take a beating. Attributes male audiences could trick themselves into thinking they too possessed.
Happy trails, Hans.
Die Hard, in particular, is the action movie that broke the mold of the juiced-up juggernaut. Before becoming the Terminator, Arnold was Mr. Olympia. Before becoming Rambo, old Sly was a porn star in The Party at Kitty and Studs. So, before icing Hans Gruber as John McClane in Die Hard, what was Bruce Willis doing to earn his Macho Man credentials? Bruce Willis was receiving second billing to former beauty queen Sybil Shepherd in the ABC private detective romantic dramedy Moonlighting. The show was such a smash success, it vaulted Willis into that sweet, succulent endorsement money. Like this commercial for Seagram's. But Willis's reputation at this point was so soft he couldn't even shill beer like a normal celeb. He had to flit about in white pleated pants and sip golden wine coolers, which in his defense is where the fun starts. However, this public persona perfectly played into the storyline of Die Hard. The movie sets up with Willis's NYPD character John McClane flying to Los Angeles to try to patch things up with his estranged wife for the holidays. Remember, the 80s were almost as much defined by divorce as they were by cocaine. Probably related. Food for thought. Anyway, McClane arrives and is immediately further emasculated by the wife who left him. She's making beaucoup bucks more than he is while in the company of slick international multimillionaires, a fact symbolized by her sending him a limo to pick him up at the airport and by her fancy Rolex gold watch. Bruce's soft public mythology meshed with him being set up as the perfect downtrodden nice guy underdog. It made it so appealing when he proved his doubters wrong, both on screen and across America. With every machine-gunned or choked-out German terrorist, normal American men felt like they too could heroically reinvent their identity, save the day, and get the girl. It's not a coincidence that McClane rescues his wife by popping off the Rolex that most men couldn't afford. That's some capital S symbolism. Die Hard played upon the fragile male ego like a Stradivarius, which is why it is undeniably one of the greatest action movies of all time. This kinder, gentler, less beefcakey action hero archetype set the stage for the action careers of Alec Baldwin, Keanu Reeves, Will Smith, and even Tom Cruise. Often, these roles tended to be cops, CIA or FBI agents, or pilots or drivers. Normal guys, thrust into extreme action circumstances due to their relatable yet still impressively manly profession. And so we arrive at the 1990s, a decade that in its early years barely achieved anything innovative in terms of plot or character development, as Hollywood executives instead elected to mash up old ingredients like Mom on Leftover Day. Die Hard on a boat, Die Hard on a plane, Die Hard in a prison, Die Hard in the house.
You guys give up, or you're thirsty for more?
A sequel to The Terminator, more Arnold being big and strong, and now he's trying to be the nice guy you drink a beer with. Keanu playing a hero with a surfboard and a badge. Keanu playing a hero with a badge on a bus. Pierce Brosnan bringing back Bond. Pitifully sad knockoff Bruce Lee. Less sad Kung Fu, but now with the badge-wielding buddy cops including a black comedian. No Kung Fu, but two black badge-wielding comedian buddy cops instead of one. And we can't forget Tom Cruise taking a page out of Harrison Ford's How to Be an Action Star playbook and running through the action. And running and running and running. Tom, come back! You didn't pay your check! There were some notable exceptions to the unoriginality of this action era, such as 1994's The Crow, but by and large, it seemed that the collective imagination of Hollywood had stalled out. But why? It's because money. Spec action scripts about cops or CIA agents or assassins were selling for millions of dollars a pop. Actors were getting paid even more, and audiences were turning up in droves over and over again despite being presented only slight variations on familiar themes. There was no need for Hollywood to reinvent their wheel when it was already driving them to the bank. It's entirely possible that we would still be stuck in this narrative rut if it hadn't been for the biggest film innovation since Dorothy visited Oz in Technicolor. computer-generated imagery. In 1975, George Lucas formed Industrial Light and Magic to handle the special effects for Star Wars. Ever since, coders and computer scientists had toiled to bring the look and feel of their virtual realities into the mainstream. So at last, dinosaurs no longer had to look like bathtub toys, but could instead tromp around on screen like this. Yeah, it still holds up. We now live firmly entrenched within the CGI era of film. Movies are produced on bigger, faster, and more visually stimulating scales, which often results in the action and adventure genres melding into one. Thanks to CGI, shotguns weren't just used to shoot criminals in bank robberies, now they were used to shoot velociraptors in jungles. Furthermore, additional genre melding occurred as traditional narratives got CGI'd into action-adventure spectaculars. For example, children's myths used to resemble a filmed version of a county theater production, but now they look like waging war on acid. Car chases in detective movies used to be a series of close scrapes and swerves, but now entire franchises are devoted to impossible automotive gymnastics. And instead of fight sequences being confined to the abilities of professional fight performers, now Hawaiian surfer dudes can become martial art manipulators of time and space.
I know Kung Fu.
Within the action genre itself, these new computer production capabilities led to the development of a new kind of leading man, the powerful nerd. A hacker could become one last hope for humanity. A mild-mannered student could become a web-slinging savior of the metropolis. And an engineer could build himself into a superhero. With a smidgen of digital tinkering, literally any old dweeb could get on screen and beat down a bad guy.
Go web! Fly!
Hence the rise of the comic book movie. It may seem counterintuitive, but a superhero often starts from a more relatable place than traditional action roles. After all, not everybody will be a grizzled cop, but being bit by a radioactive spider? That could happen to anyone, even someone from your friendly neighborhood. While Richard Donner's Superman in 1979 and Tim Burton's Batman a decade later were groundbreaking for their time, they failed to establish the comic book movie as a true genre. It wasn't until 2002 that Sam Raimi's Spider-Man launched us into the movie epoch we currently live in. One in which our summers are dominated by Marvel and DC characters, Stan Lee making cameos, and reboots of reboots. However, superhero antics aren't limited to comic book movies. The Fast and Furious franchise evolved from simple drag racing to stunts that now defy the laws of physics. Children's toys lay waste to our cities to save the planet, and our favorite old wine cooler drinking NYPD detective John McClane, now he surfs atop fighter jets in his late 50s. Which brings us to today, action fans. We have truly gone through the looking glass, from black and white swashbucklers to digitized stars that aren't even real flesh and blood. In true postmodern fashion, now action films are gigantic mashups of the tropes that came before them. Who knows what the next chapter in the history of action will be? A new kind of leading man? The long past overdue establishment of the leading action lady? Virtual reality? Only one thing for certain is that one way or another, asses will be kicked. And film school will be there chewing popcorn, center row on opening day. We shouldn't actually sit in the center. We should sit like in the back. You want to be in the center, but like a screen and a half distance. Just look it up.